SBM Live, subscribe, we speaking boxing. SBM Live, subscribe, we speaking boxing. SBM Live, subscribe, we speaking boxing. Kenneth, yo, let's be speaking boxing. SBM Live, subscribe, we speaking boxing. SBM Live, subscribe.
Alright, we're here with Djinji from SolBox. He has a boxing gym, nice boxing gym over here in Miami. I wanted to get him on SBM Boxing. I actually train here. Hell of a boxing gym. You can see the murals on the wall, and I just wanted to grab some of his attention and see if he can cover some boxing, because he's not only he trains, but he knows his boxing.
Well, thank you. I don't know it, but I study it.
Okay.
I like to say that. I like to say that if there's this saying where a guy says you don't know shit about boxing, and that's I think Floyd Mayweather and his uncle kind of coined that,
Yeah.
And I'm constantly learning about boxing, whether it's in the gym, training people, from a beginner to a fighter, to someone who really likes the craft. I watch fights. I'm constantly listening to commentators. I'm looking at people's movements. So I'm of the thought that, the little bit that I know is because I'm just open to listening a lot, and I listen to different perspectives. With the popularity of social media, you have to really have a strong filtering system, and you cannot let public opinion sway your opinion, because not everybody's opinion is based on study. It's based on emotions, it's based on popular, thought. It's based on a lot of different things. So sometimes I look at people's pages, and when they make sense, and it's not so much that I like what they're saying, but they call boxing a sweet science, so there's certain things that just are in science. And then like science, there's a lot of things that are just still slightly inexplicable, but they're there, like, rotational orbit of the sun, like, well, damn, a guy can break it down and tell you that this is how planets revolve around the sun, but it's still like, it's some incredible shit when you think about it. So you take your favorite boxer and you see him or her execute their knowledge of the sweet science, and a casual fan or a couch or a keyboard warrior will say, oh man, this fucking guy sucks, this guy's a bum, but there's so much more to it than that. Oh man, I don't like Floyd, he doesn't fight no more, he's he's this, he's that, all these type of derogatory terms. And these are usually people who haven't looked at the entirety of his career. They might just be looking at a certain part of it. They don't like this, they don't like that, but they love Ali. They'll call a certain boxer a runner because he utilizes the lateral movement, and they'll call him scared. But then they'll look at other boxers from years ago who might be doing the same thing, and they'll clap their hands to that. So it's not so much that I know boxing, but I study it, and I see how.
Who's some of your favorite boxers? Because I see on your wall you got a lot of old school.
Yeah, well, I have a lot of old school boxers on the wall because I wanted this gym to be different. I didn't want it to be like. I didn't want it to be the type of gym where you're going to walk in and see every popular boxer's face on the wall, for a number of reasons. I love my popular boxers, but more importantly than my popular boxers that I love that are on TV are the members who come into this gym. And I'd rather them not be starstruck by the poster of, the star of the day. I'd rather them worry about the star that's in themselves. These old school guys on the wall, they did their thing. They already left us their gifts. So we're not chasing them, they're there for inspiration. They're all in black and white pictures except for Alexis Arguello. He's the only one that's got a color picture. He's a special case for me. And so one of my all-time favorites is a shared favorite amongst many is Sugar Ray Robinson. And he fought, in generations before. He was born in the same year as my grandfather in 1921, actually May 3rd or May 4th. He's a Taurus, born Walker Smith Jr. And he was one of the fighters that really utilized all the aspects of the sweet science, and also just encompassed a fighter spirit. He could box you, he could brawl with you, he used incredible footwork, he used strategies, but he was a beast in the ring. And when we talk about who the pound for pound is, if I'm not mistaken, that term was actually first accredited to him. And this was back in the 40s and 50s. So Sugar Ray Robinson is one of my all-time favorites. There were many great boxers from his era, too many of which to mention. I don't know them all, and he was also, he was born in Detroit, I believe, but he really made his name in Harlem. I'm a New Yorker, and my Uncle Jack, who's about 85, 87, can sit back and tell me how he used to see Sugar Ray Robinson drive up and down Malcolm X Boulevard in a pink Cadillac. So I like to be able to talk to the elders about the guys that they were looking at growing up. My father used to tell me stories about Joe Louis. My father was born in 1931, and in 1936, people used to go to the movies or listen to their fights on the radio. There was no TV. And so Joe Louis's fights were always broadcast either in the movie theaters or on the radio. My father was 5 years old in 1936. And Joe Louis was the second black African-American heavyweight after Jack Johnson. Jack Johnson lost the title in 1910, and 20 years later, 1930, Louis became the champion. So back then in America, we had the era of Jim Crow and segregation and all these really, I don't have to go into it. If you know American history, you know what it was. So all that being said, a guy like Joe Louis he didn't just speak for fight fans. He spoke for people who were disenfranchised, who were marginalized based on race and ethnicity, who couldn't speak, didn't have a voice. This man, the use of his fists and his feet in the ring were, the voice of his people. And, when he fought Max Schmeling during World War II, he also became the voice of the American public in general. So, the thing about boxing for me is that it's not just about sports history, it's about American history. And American history is a history that is a melting pot of many different cultures and ethnicities. And if you trace the history of boxing in this country, you'll see it starts in the late 1800s, and with all different immigrants coming over from Europe and South America, and African Americans post-slavery, but still pre-Jim Crow in that Reconstruction era. And that's the era that a man like Jack Johnson comes from. And, the way he used to learn how to fight was just, I'm not going to get into it, but, the situations that guys like him had to go through, that fighters from the 30s and the Depression had to go through, regardless of race and ethnicity. These guys ate nails for dinner.
And that's one of the things I was going to ask you, because I know there's different variables that you got to take into consideration as far as when it comes to different generations.
Absolutely.
And it's kind of hard to label the best ever or the best, the all-time great, or anything like that, but it's just, there's different variables. You can't compare.
You can, and I think it's really unfair for anyone to call themselves the best ever. And I am a Floyd Mayweather boxing fan. I don't have to be a fan of his outside the ring, but I'm a fan of his in the ring because he's leading with his faculties. But you're absolutely right, and this is just one man's opinion. The climate of society in any given generation produces a certain type of boxing. Bam! You understand? So you're not going to get another Ali because you're not in the middle of the 60s civil rights movement. Now, with what's going on now, we might be at the cusp of another one. Let's see what comes up from the ashes of that. But Ali was Ali. There's not going to be another one. I don't care who comes out and talks trash. They're not going to do it with the same grace and eloquence that he did. So let's leave Ali in his own zone. Mike Tyson was from the 80s, man. New York City, Brooklyn, came out in 85, 86, 84. That era is not going to be repeated,
It was the heavyweight era.
That was the era that brought the heavyweights and American heavyweights back into the limelight, because after Muhammad Ali, there was a lot of great heavyweights. Larry Holmes, Ernie Shavers, all these guys, but they weren't as charismatic as Ali, so there was a big gap. No one even paid much attention until Tyson again. You got a guy like Sugar Ray Robinson. Boom. Okay, he's from the bebop era. When he wasn't boxing, he was listening to Miles Davis and Charlie Parker and dressing up like them and dancing with them. Boom. Fast forward again to who was the predecessor to Ali in popularity. I'm going to say Sugar Ray Leonard. He came out of the Olympics in '76, handsome, fast, smart, groomed to deal with the public. Very articulate man. And, he was one of the ones that made the welterweight division something to look at and become a high-grossing weight division. Because before that, it was only heavyweights making that money. The other ones were just, you're there, but the purses weren't so big. If I'm not mistaken, the 1981 fight between Hearns and Leonard was one of the biggest purses at that time. People in Detroit bet everything on it, and they lost. They bet mortgages, buildings, blocks, the whole kind of thing. And, Leonard pulled out an upset. I was in this. My father, who was a jazz musician, was the one that introduced me to boxing just by watching him watch it. Jazz musicians and boxing have a very close relationship that, like I said, goes back to the 30s, even to the 20s, but to the 30s. You got a guy like Henry Armstrong, who was the first boxer to hold simultaneous belts in 3 divisions. I believe it was light, welter and middleweight, or featherweight, lightweight, and welterweight. Probably the latter, featherweight, lightweight, and welterweight. And you know, like, who does that simultaneously? He didn't go up. He was holding all 3 simultaneously. So he's cutting weight, he's building up weight, and during that time in the 30s, you know, you had the big swing era. You got guys like Chick Webb playing big dance halls, and so I come from a musical background as well as a martial art background, but I've always been able to see the correlation between rhythm, artistry, boxing. It's a very brutal sport. It's not for the faint of heart, but if you can see past the brutality, you can see the beauty that lies within.
So when people come to this gym, what do you bring to the table?
Well, when you walk in, the first thing you notice is New York City style graffiti that takes you back to the 80s and 90s. It's not a lot of new school stuff, but we got new school paint and caps, low pressure cans and stuff that allow you to get really specific, but the vibe is definitely, it's old school hip hop vibe. So I don't bring so much of a jazz vibe to the gym, but I do follow with the tradition of bringing rhythmic association to punch mechanics, into footwork, into, you know, just how you look at it. So when I'm teaching a beginner, I'm trying to teach him or her how to find their balance, how to find their posture, how to work the fundamental movement patterns. And the last thing I'm trying to get them to do is punch hard. Because if they can't punch right, they can't punch hard.
No, you welcome all levels?
Punch hard. We welcome all levels. We welcome beginners, intermediates. We welcome hardcore fight fans, casuals. One of the things that I like to do is not just train people, but I try to teach people or share with them what I'm studying and what I've learned over the years. So we welcome everybody.
So you consider me a beginner?
I would consider you, no, because you know you had a basic understanding of stance. There's some spacing issues between legs and hands that I might tweak, but outside of that, when I say go into a boxing stance, you know, it might not have been in the bullseye, but it wasn't, you know, it wasn't on the wall around the target. It was still in the target zone.
So you think I got a long way to go before I step into the ring?
No, actually, I think you can step into the ring soon. You get your mouthpiece and your headgear, and what I do is I start people working jabs first.
There you go.
I start them going, if you can't defend a jab, then you got no business trying to defend a right cross. Watch the cross, cover the hook, roll out of them, slip, parry, step around.
So where can they find this gym at?
7101 North Miami Avenue in the Little Haiti section. Some people like to call it Little River, but it's really Little Haiti. 7101 North Miami Avenue, Unit 107 in the back. It's a warehouse. You'll hear hip hop banging out of it.
Bring a towel, like you said.
Bring a towel, bring some water. We have no AC. It's hot. You're gonna sweat.
It's a gym.
It's a gym, and it's not meant to be comfortable, but it's not meant to be too intimidating either. I want it to be a nice, you know, welcoming place where you can have some fun and, you know, break a sweat and learn how to throw your punches over and keep your chin down.